On to Elysium. I'm gonna go have a drink. You guys engage.
Go have a drink where?
Over there.
All right. Okay, first you guys, because you guys were not a fan of Elysium.
No, well, how about you introduce it because you like it.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, Elysium is Neil Blomkamp's latest movie, the director of
This follow-up to
District
District
9.
9, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
His second feature film from that South African director, Neil Blomkamp. All right, go.
Oh, what can I say?
Synopsis, you fucks.
So, I thought you were going to get a drink, you son
I
of a
can
bitch.
synopsize and then you can give
Okay.
your input.
Yeah.
So,
I'm kind of like the middle ground between you two.
yeah, so Elysium is a story that's about Max, the main character played by Matt Damon, who lives in the dystopian future. I believe the year is like 2154.
2154, actually.
2154.
I remember that.
He lives in Los Angeles, which is apparently Los Angeles just turns into Mexico City because I actually think it was filmed in Mexico City.
Yeah.
It's not Mexico City now. Come on, guys, let's be honest.
But in the year 2154, the world is overpopulated. Most of the population is disease ridden. There's extreme poverty, and all the rich people live on a space station in Earth's orbit called Elysium,
Which is perfect.
And they also have these machines that can basically cure any disease you could ever get, as well as reconstruct your face and basically make you live forever, apparently, from what they show in the film. But for some reason, there are immigration laws that prevent all these other people
From
from
going to
Elysium. And Jodie Foster's character is basically her job is security and immigration on Elysium, and she very early on in the film demonstrates her will to keep the pores out of Elysium. Out of Elysium. And she hires a rogue agent who lives on Earth, who's played by Charlton Copley.
Wickus from District 9.
Who is the lead in District 9.
Who plays Kruger in this movie.
And he plays the psychopathic rogue mercenary that Jodie Foster hires. Early on in the film, Max is caught in a radiation accident where he works, which basically only gives him 5 days to live. And so he has put himself on a mission to get to Elysium at whatever it costs
to heal himself
and guarantee him longer life.
So they bolt this sweet exoskeleton to his body.
So his first mission through some car thief contact of his is to go and attack the head of the corporation he works for, who's played by William Fichtner, and kidnap him and download what's in his brain because it's important. That mission fails, which leads Max with the important information stuck in his brain, and then he ends up going up to Elysium to then try and help save his old love interest's daughter. There's this whole play. It gets messy at that point, but at the very end, he gets up to Elysium and has to fight Charlton Copley up there, and shit happens.
Shit gets real.
So that's the film, and it takes place in a very the style is very the same as District 9 and this sort of this gritty kind of feel that he developed, with all the
Spaceships looking like they're held together with barbed wire.
Yeah, he's got this very unique approach that is like science fiction that isn't necessarily. Although he showed a little bit on the other side with the design of Elysium, but he has this very interesting.
Well, Elysium's basically the Mac store with plants.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So your thoughts, Mr. Harem?
It's the problem with this movie for me was not enjoyment right out of the gate. There was moments that I enjoyed and was like, oh, this is kind of fun, but the more I dwell on the movie as a whole and think about it, the more I kind of like you watch a movie and then you go on later and say, did I really enjoy it? What were the aspects I liked as a filmmaker on my own? The more I kind of attack it on that level, the less I like it, which is unfortunate because I really, really like District 9. And go back to that film a lot and can rewatch it and enjoy it every time that I watched it. But Elysium on many different levels bothers me. There's some cool special effects, and yes, there's some cool gory moments that make the rest of the stuff kind of fun and has those little peaks, but mainly it's just like this low valley for me where nothing really makes sense. Like there aren't those moments in this movie where you care. Like, I don't care about Matt Damon's character at all and what he's going through and what he's doing, and that really just bogs the movie down. And there's moments when I watch a film, and if I actually acknowledge in my own brain when I'm watching and say, okay, when this is boring, when are things going to go on? It happened. The last time it happened for me was when I was watching Man of Steel, and there's a scene and a moment in the movie where I think back and say that was the moment where I realized the movie wasn't going to work for me and it wasn't keeping my interest. And that's when, like, he's talking to his mom on the porch, and in Elysium there was a point before he got his exoskeleton on where he comes and talks to this guy named Spider, who's just overacting the entire time and being ridiculous. And I'm just at a certain point I go, when are things going to start happening and moving forward, and like when am I going to start caring? And when that happens in a film, then I go, fuck, it's lost me. Like, I'm not going to be able to actually legitimately enjoy this the way that I wish I could, because I wanted to. I wanted to really, really like this movie, because I like sci-fi stuff in general. I think the main problem for me was just Matt Damon's character is just unlikable. And sure, you can have an unlikable character, but they have to either redeem themselves or be interesting. And he wasn't interesting.
What made his character unlikable?
Hold on. This is going to be awesome because I haven't seen this shit, so I'm going to be able to tell at the end of this who had the more compelling argument, whether it's shit or good.
What made his character unlikable, Isaac, for me was his whole driving force for the entire film was like, I don't want to die. Right?
What an asshole.
No, it was like I don't want to die, and he goes out of his way to just fulfill his own I don't want to die, I don't care about anyone else. And like at no point that works for me if at some point he starts to realize that mentality isn't not what he should be doing, and he makes a gradual shift or like a change.
Side note, this is the second time I've heard that about this movie, so keep going.
Two witnesses.
Or like a change in his character, and he starts to realize, look, I can't be selfish, I have to like move forward, and I can't just care about myself, I have to get engaged in this bigger plot that's going on. And he never really makes that transition. And at the end, spoiler, yes, at the end he's going to die because they take this information and they put it into the system, and they say, when this happens, you're gonna die, Matt Damon. And he's like, I'm gonna die anyway. And that's like, he doesn't say, I'm like, if it would have redeemed a lot of the movie for me if that moment when he's gonna die, if he said, I don't want to die, but I'm gonna do it anyway, or I'm gonna fucking die anyway. Like, I don't want to. He's just like, I'm gonna die anyway, just fucking do it. And that just destroys the entire rest of the fucking film.
And then Robin Williams shows up and says, it's not your fault.
It's not your fault.
Don't you fucking do this to me.
So, they couldn't even do that. They couldn't have the moment where he's like, look, I don't want to fucking die, but I'm going to do this anyway because it's for the... they don't even have that moment. He's like, look, I'm going to fucking die anyway. Just fucking do it. I don't give a shit anymore.
The pivotal moment is
it's lost.
There,
and so none of the rest of the movie was redeemed for me. And so it's just... It becomes it's on top of that where the character doesn't really become redeeming or likable or interesting. Like, what's interesting about that character? Like, he doesn't want to die, and that's all they got.
I can tell you what the filmmakers thought was interesting about him, but doesn't work.
And what's that?
His backstory.
That was stupid. Because
that's the point.
The movie opens and they put like readable text, and I'm like, fuck. Like, right away I'm like, god damn it, I just want to get into it, and I don't want this back at, like, all of that scene with him as a kid.
I'm not playing Skyrim right now.
Yeah, like, there's him as a kid with the nurse chick, and it's so cliche and stupid. I'm like, I don't care about him as a kid. Just jump into the fucking movie and don't be so... It was like lens flare and him, he steals things. All of this is established later when he's older. Why do we need to see this stupid flashback to him as a kid? None of that worked.
And here's my overall criticism of the film, is that it tried to be something it wasn't. And I've heard a lot of people try and defend the film, saying, it's a sci-fi action movie, man. You just got to turn your brain off. Story isn't as important as the effects. Well, if that's the case, then don't fucking give me this sappy backstory with the Locket horseshit and all that. Just get me into Matt Damon blowing stuff up and turning it into a part android. Yeah. Instead, what they did is there was the moment after moment where this film tried to say, oh, there's a message here. Oh, there was a message, all right. And like I said earlier, it had the subtlety of a sledgehammer. I mean, if you look back at District 9, which to me was a brilliant film, and I really loved the entire movie in its core, it had a very blatant theme about immigration. It took place in South Africa, where apartheid had been an issue, and on all these other things, and it basically was just subbing out one culture for another that was science fiction. But in comparison to the themes of Elysium, that was so softly subtle, because this was just like, opens up right away. Rich people are bad, poor people are fucked. And it has no context. There's no gray anywhere in this film. It is black and white. Jodie Foster is evil from the very beginning. She orders them to blow up ships that are unidentified that have all these immigrants, but they never explain what causes this division or where the gray areas are. It's just immediately established, like, all the rich people are up in the sky, and
all the poor people want to go up to Elysium.
And they don't talk about, and they don't give any sort of weight to this fact that, and they also, the other big thing is the healthcare issue that they bring up, because this machine can cure everybody, which is just heavy-handed too. And they don't bring up, like, why can't this? I mean, I agree that on certain genres you can be forgiving on a lot of these logistical things, or you shouldn't think about this. But in these films, this was pivotal. Why aren't there these machines on Earth? Why can't...
they have a whole fucking at the end of the movie, they're like, release the machines to heal everyone. Well, like, why couldn't you fucking do that? Like, what?
And and it doesn't even talk about what that impact means at the very end. We're like, if you get up there and give that stuff that's in your brain, it's going to change everything. Why? How? Explain to me. Is everyone on the planet going to fly up to Elysium and use that one machine that's by the swimming pool
that the Asian bitch was using?
Yeah, like
everyone has one of those machines. It's like, how often are you getting diseases? You need this goddamn machine in your house.
I mean that's a big issue just starting right off. And then furthermore, there's some pretty terrible performances in this film that I think that just like didn't need to be. Jodie Foster has this bizarre, I think what she was trying to attempt is
I called it. I fucking called it from the trailer.
I think it's supposed to be a South African accent, but to me, someone told me
it was like a weird British accent.
Someone told me it's actually a lesbian accent, which I will actually buy more. Actually, if you told me that, but it's just she plays this caricature that is so stupid. Everybody was in a different film. I felt like
that's fucking fascinating.
She's in a different movie. And there's this weird power play very early on with her and the president that makes me question the entire that
becomes
power
a big
structure.
Problem because let's ignore the fact that when shit's going down, for some reason the president of Elysium is running with bodyguards. Let's ignore that, because Reddit was like, why the fuck is the president of Elysium running with bodyguards? Like, trying
they don't
to
do any help. He's immediately overpowered.
Yeah, I know.
So
like, ignore that. Like, they're trying to do this thing. Like, no, it's a smaller story and this bigger thing. But then you start showing us aspects of the bigger world,
right?
And have Jodie Foster at these meetings and doing counseling things, and you're like, no, it's not. Then it's not a smaller story. It becomes like, you can't show us pieces of that world and then not explain the rest of it. Like, you got it. It's a weird balance, and you're jumping too much between the two of them.
And so, I mean, it had all of that. I mean, I didn't hate this film. It did have some really cool action moments.
It was disappointing as part of my problem. I enjoyed great moments, but you compare it and say District 9 was fucking awesome. You want to go into say this director's going to do something great with this.
And here's my core argument on that plane. District 9 was $30 million. This film was $115 million, almost 4 times the budget. And yet we got a lesser film for that. And frankly, at this point right now, I can't remember what the studio's clocked in, but I think they're right around $100 million. So as of right now, they've just hopefully made their money back. Yeah. District 9, I think, overall domestically grossed $116 million. So it quadrupled its money, where this film was a bigger studio endeavor and yet won't make its money back. And so again, I question, and this Elysium comes on a long summer of just fucking these huge blockbuster films that have been kind of meh.
And people are okay with that. It's weird to me.
Well, and
you're like, yeah, the story didn't work, and yeah, I didn't care. But I mean,
well, yeah, I mean, people seem to be bending over backwards to convince themselves that
it's good.
That Pacific Rim was an amazing movie.
Yeah. And my point is, we need to
stop
okay,
but it wasn't
doing
amazing.
That. We need to stop doing that because the studios are struggling. they're going to look at Elysium and go, fuck, now what's the next thing? So we need to stop like trying to convince ourselves that these movies are okay and going to see these things in the theater, because that's the only thing that keeps these movies going.
And it's encouraging when certain films don't, like Kick-Ass 2, like we were saying, is like, good, don't go to that. It's not good, but don't go to the other movies as well.
Well, go to Snowpiercer.
Or just admit, like, say, I went to the movie, I wasn't satisfied, here's why. Don't say, oh, this is the greatest fucking thing I've ever seen. It's like,
apologists, motherfuckers.
Well, it's true, and it's this weird chicken before the egg thing, too, because then the studios start to cater to what they call the Walmart audience, where they say, well,
and why Snowpiercer has 30 minutes cut out
well,
of it.
we need Jodie Foster to be clearly evil. One of the worst things, Charlton Copley, who has shown himself to be a very multi-layered
I fucking
actor,
loved him in this movie.
comes off as the most one-note, ridiculous, psychotic. He came right out of Commando into this film.
See, okay,
and his
that's
dialogue.
the crux of my argument. Just
But
finish up.
But again, like both Isaac, Adam, and I spent the last 25 minutes of this film laughing our asses off.
And I loved every
Neil
second.
Blomkamp, I can guarantee Neil Blomkamp did not want us to laugh our asses off. I mean, spoiler alert, there's a moment where Jodie Foster's character is finally killed. She's
With
stabbed in the
glass.
neck with glass.
I'm watching this movie.
And this entire time, she's been this hard-ass, one-note bitch.
Yeah.
And she gets stabbed with the glass, and one of the characters goes over to like see her.
It's a
and
nurse too, so
it's
it
a
could have
nurse
saved her life.
and has like possibly medical intervention, and Jodie Foster just says, "No, don't," and like dies. And so it was this
No,
bullshit.
she's just like, enough, right?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
it's enough.
Yeah, it's like the scene at the end of X-Men 3 when Magneto's suddenly, for no reason, is like, what have I done?
Exactly. And it's this bullshit moment where the filmmakers go, and here's how I make this character interesting, and here's how I give her depth and all that stuff. No, bullshit. You spent 2 seconds throwing in one fucking line, and the rest of the movie you spent having her be one-note character with a really shitty accent. Yeah. Don't try and trick me. That's insulting to me as an audience member.
That was my Wolverine argument,
because,
just as a storyline instead of a
because
character.
my argument is, there isn't a Walmart audience. You're just tricking people and pulling the wool over their eyes and thinking that, oh, this is how you make a movie. There isn't a Walmart audience. We're all smarter than that. And so that's my point. For the most part, we're all smarter than that. And I think what would happen is these shitty films are feeding the idea that these movies are okay. And exactly, it's the apologists and people saying like, oh, it's okay. I mean, I had a very long Facebook volley about defending this film, and it's like, why should I have to defend it? We all saw District 9 for $30 million and what Neil Blomkamp could do outside of the studio system, and it was a completely different animal. It existed on its own, a film unlike I've ever seen. And there was, and unfortunately I couldn't find it, there was a film review of this film that basically said the same thing, gave it a C. Yeah. But where it was an early screening where actually all the critics got to go up on this rooftop terrace, and they had a little press conference with Neil. And the person writing the article actually questioned him and said, like, why did you choose to make these decisions in your film after District 9, and called out some of the flaws? And Neil Blomkamp was kind of like taken aback, and then basically said, like, this was a much bigger film. It was a much bigger budget. My next movie is going to be much smaller. And so I just wanted to make a big budget action film. And to me, how that was sounding was like, I had a big budget. I had a studio behind me. I had all the political ties. And I kind of just sold out a little bit. I had to just give up. I had to give my set over to Matt Damon and some of these other scenes. And had to have this terrible dialogue with this guy named Spider. and had to have all these scenes. And I had to tell Charlton Copley, who's a good friend of mine and is an amazing actor, to say, hey, come here, yeah, where are you? I've always wanted a waff, and all this shit.
Always wanted a waff.
I want a tea, you fucking needle.
And he just says all these, I mean, they don't even show you how much of a psycho he is. It's done in exposition from the president saying, that psychopath you run with, who's also a rapist and a murderer, is trouble and shouldn't be that way. And so we don't. All we ever see him at that point is him in a cloak, like looking scary.
Yeah. Okay, guys, this is everything I love about this movie.
But see, that's the point. You're loving it because it's
okay.
bad.
Okay, let me get my
let me just
rebuttal
finish on the Charlton Copley. Right. So then, when we finally see him being bad, the first thing he does is he strikes a woman in the face. So it's like, oh, he is bad. And then he gets her on the ship. ship, and in the middle of all the calamity of trying to kidnap this woman, he immediately feels the sexual urge to try and rape her. So he comes over and says he's always wanted a waff.
He's always
And
wanted a waff.
he's like,
A what? A wife?
a wife.
Oh,
We
yeah.
thought he said waffle. I swear to God, it's so bad.
I thought he was gonna do a
You're
tirade
like,
about.
God damn it, gamers!
And he does this whole thing where he like starts massaging her and comes. He's like, but I couldn't ever settle down.
I think it was
But you,
settle down.
but you make me want to settle down. I'm like,
make me
you're in the
settle
middle
down.
of a mission trying
Firefight.
to destroy Matt Damon, and it was just this moment where they're like, we really need to show how bad Charlotte Copley can be. So be really fucking creepy, dude. And it was all these forced, contrived moments in this studio little chart that they said we need to have A, B, and C in order us to make our bottom line and to sell
That's
tickets
so
at the
interesting
box office.
because recently, outside of the movie world, in the comic, they had who did Spawn?
Todd
directed it?
Todd McFarlane.
Todd-
They had
okay.
Mark Miller. They had all these
Yeah.
comic like rape in comic books. What is and they're all like, well, there's no easier way to establish that your bad guy's a bad guy than have him rape a bitch. and everyone's like, you can't just say that, can you? Like, yeah, we don't really like take it very seriously. It's just a really good device. And they're like,
Well, that's all it was. I mean,
Yeah.
it was a one note. I mean, in the truest sense, it was a gimmick to throw out there and sell this guy. My final issue with Charlotte Copley's character is we see this process of turning Matt Damon into a partial android, which I think they didn't play up enough.
Yeah.
I wanted to see him really gain like super strength with this, like tearing up like doors and
He does it
stuff.
by accident. When he throws people
Yeah.
across rooms, it's unexpected. Like, oh, I guess he does have.
Well,
But-
I mean, granted, he's only had this exoskeleton for like 3 hours, so it's kind of.
But they show this arduous surgery, and like he's taking off bandages
the
hours
bone
later.
saw.
And he's like he's still bleeding and recovering. And then the last 20 minutes of the film, when for some reason Charlotte Copley takes over all of Elysium, with
No, he just decides like it's ours now.
Yeah.
It's ours.
with
Just
two
throwing
guys and grenades.
The needle.
But then they're like, well, boss, Matt Damon's coming, so you need to be a worthy adversary. So in a montage that lasts about 40 minutes on screen, they also attach, because they have one in the storage closet, I guess, they also attach the same device to Charlotte Copley so they can have a matched fight. And it happens in about 40 seconds on screen, and Charlotte Copley's ready to rock and roll and kick his ass. So it was like this ridiculous, where like, I felt like Sly
like the end of
Stone
Iron Man, man. It was like the
had some like inkling in the script or somebody's like, well, we need to get them fighting together, you know, where it's just like, and they're like, you're right, Sly, we just need to throw, then we'll get that in the script. You know, and like, it was just, and coming from a guy, Neil Blomkamp, who did District 9, it was like a
was
really
weird.
smart film.
Because he wrote and directed this, and that was what was strange. Like, what?
It just felt like-
it just felt
it
weird.
just, it was a clear visual evidence that there was political shit that went on because it was a bigger film,
Yeah.
and the film suffered from it.
Okay. Well, okay.
Go ahead.
Here's my rebuttal.
Hold on. God, here's a rebuttal with Mr. Johnson. Step up to the
I mean, everything you say is correct. Basically, all right. Everything you say. Everything you say is like.
Here at Court Justice, Main Justice.
Shut up. Everything you say is like intelligent, succinct points. But at the same time,
Sutured, good work.
shut the fuck up, Clancy. I'm trying to
I
just.
don't even know what you're doing anymore over there.
You going, go.
Okay, I saw this movie and I enjoyed it, right? I enjoyed this in the same way I enjoy The Running Man or something like that. You know, I mean, and that's, I don't know why. Maybe I just blew District 9 out of my mind and just wiped the slate clean. Like, if this was, say, one of my other favorite current filmmakers is Neil Marshall, you know, director of Dog Soldiers and Doomsday and The Descent. And if this was a Neil Marshall movie, I'd be like, Neil did it again. Fun movie, you know? And that's how I watched this movie. It had inventive, ridiculous action sequences. It had these crazy, larger-than-life characters. I described it to Boyd after I saw it as... It's like a late '80s Joel Silver action movie that I really liked. You know, I didn't read much more into it than that, and it was visually inventive enough. I mean, the special effects were great. The CG is some of the better CG I've seen. Everything felt like it had a lot of weight to it. Yeah. I mean, my biggest complaint with the movie is that it feels like really rushed. If nothing else, there's a lot of cool shit that happens in the movie that I would like to be expanded upon. Mm-hmm. You know, like there's so much shit flying around in this movie that would have been like the main crux of a different movie, you know, like those little discs that he shoots into people and they explode, you know, or the robot soldiers, you know, that they just kind of factor into one scene, sort of.
They get their own movie later.
Yeah, it'll be his next film. Chappie, I believe it's called. It's actually based off of a short film. A short film he did before District 9. But I agree with you. But my problem is
he's not done yet.
But I think I just went into the film with a different mindset. I mean, I had been drinking, you know, but you had too, Boyd, and it was we drank about the same amount. We went in this with a similarly clean slate, and I don't know. Is
that why my thoughts are more intelligent? I was sober,
probably. But no, I just went into this movie and like, it's been getting kind of negative buzz. I'll give it a shot, and I didn't expect much from it, and I was pleasantly surprised by the level of inventive action in it.
But then
I'm not going to defend it as a great movie like some have.
Sure.
You know, like I said, it's a good Joel Silver 80s action movie.
But then my question is, then why get Neil to make the movie, and why spend $130 million on a Joel Silver movie? And why put all the work into the CG when really what appealed to you was the larger-than-life characters and the goofiness of the film? So
those were immaculately conceived body explosions.
And to me, they were. And to me, the CG was amazing. But I see great CG in every fucking movie now. Show me something I don't see.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
there's a novelty to the exploding guys, you know? I mean, sure, there was that in District 9, and it was delightful. But I don't know. It's something about a huge budget, hard R action movie made in like the 80s mold that really appeals to me.
The thing too about the film is it feels like Neil Blomkamp is trying to like protect himself, and Damon's trying to protect, because people are watching the movie and they're saying there's deeper meaning here. Like, you guys were trying and failed to talk about this, and they're saying, nah, man. Like, nah, there was no, like, it feels like...
I can get behind that, though, because, like...
No. It feels like a post thing. They realize, like, oh, fuck,
right.
The movie didn't work out, so we're just going to deny there was anything else going on but this kind of action.
Deny... I mean, the fact that there's the class division in this film is, like... It's in your face.
The pivotal,
It's
huge...
burning the skin off your face. It's
I mean, it's the same kind of thing in like, The Running Man. You know, but again, I'm saying,
what was the budget of The Running Man? This is my point. This is one of the bigger budget films that we've seen in the last 5 years. It's supposed to be a Hollywood blockbuster that's going to change the money flow of the box office. So why aren't we seeing some epic that is rocking our worlds right now, where we're across the board talking unanimously about why this is a great film? Why are we throwing money at this shit when we could do a film? District 9 was $30 million. Give Neil Blomkamp $30 million again and say, make Running Man. Make me a remake of Running Man. Well, he could fucking do it. That's
most
my
of my favorite movies were made for less than $1 million.
Exactly. So why are we spending all this money?
I'm enjoying watching Rome burn, Boyd. The studio system is collapsing around us, and I'm cackling like a banshee. Because I'm excited. That's exactly what happened in Japan in the 80s, and they made some amazing fucking movies in the 90s and 2000s, and that's what we're going to get if it keeps going like it's going. And, okay, I'm saying, you catch this movie on cable in 5 years having never heard of it, you'd be like, oh, that's pretty fucking cool. I'm going to tell my friends about this, you know? You're bringing all this extra baggage into it that I've somehow managed to just, like, wipe...
Isaac of all people.
Well, yeah, I know, it's fucking weird. I've just been able to wipe... Okay, and I think the crux of it is, if this was a PG-13 movie, I probably would have been like, fucking bullshit. But because it's a hard R movie with a crazy South African going around saying, I wanted a wife, get me to settle down, I'm gonna tear your fucking head off. And he has like, I mean, I watched this movie, you guys talk about like, oh, suddenly he has an exoskeleton. I'm thinking, of course he has a fucking exoskeleton.
And in a Joel Silver horror movie, that is inevitable. But that's my
I
point.
think part of
I'm
it,
just
and my
seeing this
argument-
movie. This is Action Jackson to me, and you guys want it to be fucking
deeper. I want it to mean something.
Steven
to me.
Spielberg can make Schindler's List and Jurassic Park, you know.
But they both meant something. To me.
And granted, but here's my argument, and I agree with
Granted.
you in that if you don't come in with any expectations, the movie stands out. And I agree with you, but there are still moments in this movie that even if I think about, I don't know who Neil Blomkamp is or how much money they spent on this, they try and trick me to think this movie means more than it does. The theme,
I just find those flaws
the
endearing.
bizarre arcs at the end with these characters. I mean, Adam hit it in the very beginning.
Yeah.
I could care less if Matt Damon lives or dies.
Well, okay, it's the same. Like from my point of view, it's a Schwarzenegger movie. Why do you give a shit about Schwarzenegger? Because it's Schwarzenegger.
But he's endearing.
But it's not.
He's endearing.
See,
Yeah,
I
but
found Matt Damon endearing.
But it's not a Schwarzenegger movie because it's
Yeah.
Matt Damon. If you're
Matt Damon.
if you're gonna play in the Hollywood system, then you gotta acknowledge some of your own rules. You don't put Tom Hanks in this role. He's
That
the
would
happy
be
smiley
pretty
guy.
sweet. Actually,
You know what I mean? It's
no,
Matt Damon.
you know how awesome it would be if they put Harrison Ford in this role. Cranky old Harrison Ford.
where have we seen Matt Damon
running around blowing up South Africans?
Where have we seen Matt Damon kick ass and be an action star? The Bourne movies, and
which
how
mean a lot more to
successful
me, yeah.
have those films been? We're coming in with.
See, I've seen the Bourne movies, and I don't really give a shit about them. And this one I enjoyed more than I've ever enjoyed a Bourne movie.
You're weird, but
Well, I mean, and it's because it hits my kinks. Exploding people, you know, weird
but
future shit,
I think
bizarre plot twists
I
that
think
make
you're
no
a very
sense.
small percentage.
don't
in this
delve into this.
observation.
But keep on your initial point. You get Matt Damon to play this character
Because he's Matt Damon, and yet you don't make him an endearing character or something we care about. You get Jodie Foster, who has a strong screen presence, and you give her this terrible
Weird
role and a
fucking
weird
accent.
accent. And
well,
you,
I don't follow you there, but keep going. Well, I get you with the Matt Damon thing because at the beginning, like in the trailer, from what you pick up from the trailer, he's a guy trying to make good on his life.
Right,
Like,
and
he
you
had a
spend-
fucking shitty past. He's trying to like straighten out, but he keeps having.
he
the
didn't have a
prejudice.
shitty past. That's the thing. He had a shitty past, but they spend more time showing you about how he's a kid and he promised this woman that he would take her one day to Elysium, and then they don't see each other for like the next 20 years, and then suddenly runs into her, and the flame is re-sparked, and he's willing to risk his life for her daughter.
Yeah.
I mean, but instead, and then they graze over the fact that he was a car thief for a few years, and this is how he
See,
knows all these
that was
shitty
the
people.
main crux of the fucking trailer. Was like, oh, you're an ex-criminal, and you're on
Right.
probation, and blah blah blah. And here's some pills. Like,
Yeah,
That's
no,
weird.
it happened because he works at a plant and got zapped with radiation. But again, and my point is, when you're going to spend millions and millions of dollars making your film pretty and beautiful and striking with your
I don't
visual
see why you
effects,
care so much about the money.
Well, he's
Because
he's coming in
what
from
I'm
that
saying-
mentality.
what I'm
but
saying is-
it's good because he's coming in from that mentality. I'm just looking right at the fucking story of what's going on and liking and enjoying sci-fi stuff, and I'm saying on that level it's not a good film, and you're coming in and saying that you enjoyed it. So who's really right here?
the money is only important because it doesn't matter. My point is, it doesn't matter. You can throw all the money at it in the world, but because you had so much money, the film suffered because you got Matt Damon involved. I'm sure he had his own input on how his character was going to be portrayed. And you got Jodie Foster, and Neil Blomkamp was probably like, Jodie, maybe you couldn't do the accent. And she's like, no, this is important to me. I've never done a film with an accent like this before, and I feel this is important for my portfolio.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm sure you
Well, he kept her from doing the Nell accent,
I
which
mean,
was good.
And to be honest, I've worked with Bill Fichtner twice.
Who's Bill Fichtner?
Bill Fichtner played the CEO that they kidnapped and jack his brain. I think Bill Fichtner is one of the most underrated actors in Hollywood right now. The most bizarre portrayal of a performance ever. It was almost like he was part robot. I didn't understand. He was completely
That's
emotionless.
true. It was weird.
And then the whole plot between him and Jodie Foster, where she's like, "Can you rewrite a program to change the entire infrastructure
you're like,
of
why
Elysium?"
are we
He's like,
watching this?
He's like, "I sure can," because she just thought of this. She just thought of this. And she's like, "Good, get on it." And again, you can make the movie you loved for a lot less money. And you don't have to have the Matt Damons. And I bet you'll enjoy it even better because it will turn out even smarter and more polished because you didn't have all those political strings attached.
Well, yeah.
So why are we throwing all this money at shit so people can just go chew popcorn and go, well, the story was terrible, but I enjoyed it.
Because Rome is burning, boys.
Rome is
And I'm
burning.
enjoying every second.
And my argument is, like, I understand you're enjoying it.
And this is one of, okay, Rome's burning. There's some like horrible shitstorms. There's Lone Rangers out there, and that's not fun. That's a bunch of orphans on fire. Who wants to see that? But this is like the Colosseum is in flames, and you're like, this is pretty fucking cool. I mean, it's terrible in a sense. I mean, this is a priceless, artifact of antiquity. It probably shouldn't melt to dust, but it's pretty cool, and there's guys exploding on it for some reason.
Okay, I will give you that.
That's the whole crux of my terrible argument.
Do you want me to? Okay, I'm coming down on the verdict here, airing both sides of this very well presented argument, and I don't fucking know, dude. Like, I have a feeling if I watch the movie, I'm gonna enjoy people blowing up, like a visceral level.
One of the movies we watched the most is X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Yeah,
we enjoy the shit out of it. We have some beers. We watch that movie.
Yeah.
We beat off into each other's faces, and then we go to sleep. And it's
I'm
fun.
not here for that part.
But again, another film that they threw money at.
I know.
But again, like, okay, in that context, you're laughing in the sense that they threw so much money at it, and here's what they got.
Yeah,
and
and
this is funny.
it's not the same though, because in Elysium I went expecting something.
Yeah.
I go to X-Men Origins the Wolverine
Expecting-
knowing it's
yeah.
gonna be shit, and knowing like, why do people?
Well,
love
but there
this?
is something to be said for interesting shit. Okay, and this is
It's not the same, man, because
This
I
is a
have to look back and say, I know this guy can make something better than this. I know that
Yeah,
he's made
right.
District 9. He can be someone that can speak and tell me an engaging story and make things way fucking more interesting than what he just did. So I have to take other factors into account and say, well, this might be why. Or
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but I'm thinking, like, okay, 20 years from now, Neil Blomkamp has a whole filmography. He's
Yes.
made better movies again at
Yes.
lower budgets and whatever. And I look back at his career, and I'm saying, okay, this is an interesting misstep that I still kind of enjoy. There's a lot of directors that are like that. They
Absolutely.
like the Coen brothers. They got or Sam Raimi. Forgive me.
He did Hercules.
Sam Raimi, he made Evil Dead, which is this really cool, interesting, weird indie movie.
Yeah.
Then he made this movie called Crime Wave that it wasn't even released in the States because it was so bizarrely terrible. But I go back, I watch that movie. I'm like, okay, this is an interesting, weird tangent. I'm surprised that a studio threw this much money at it. It's bizarre. I'm interested. It's not my favorite movie ever, but it's a weird tangent in a great filmmaker's career, because after that he makes Evil Dead 2.
Crime Wave was a much bigger budget, obviously, than Evil Dead.
Oh yeah, it was
But-
like $20 million.
$20 million, and even
That's
if
an 80s
But if
money.
you even take in inflation, what is that? $80 million? I mean, this is $100 million, and this is the standard now. What was Lone Ranger? It was even more. I
It was
think.
like
It was
200
twice that.
million.
Yeah, I mean, and the pirate movies. I mean, they're spending all this money for films that 70% of the audience go, it was all right, But
I will have you know, my grandmother loved the Lone Ranger.
But again, it's just they got you. You bought the ticket. You went and saw it.
You went there. Yeah.
And as long as they make their money back. But again, and I would urge, just to try and tie this all in. Steven Soderbergh spoke at the San Francisco International Film Festival this year, and he had it's like a 26-minute address, but you can find it online. Watch it, because it's kind of more of him just on like a free rant, like a free thought rant. But he says a lot of things about studio execs and who's running Hollywood these days, and it's people that don't know anything about cinema, nor do they care. If you mention, the merits of Hitchcock and Psycho, they'll say, yes, I believe it was Vince Vaughn's my favorite performance of his. Like, that's the disconnect.
Yeah.
And they're there because they're bean counters and they're paper pushers and they're marketing guys, and they go, how can we spin this? The kids are really into the old stuff these days. Let's remake Red Dawn. And that's why we don't get a fucking original idea out of Hollywood anymore, because these people are going back and just drawing for something that is a decade old and trying to repackage it.
It
And
has recollection value. I think you
Yeah.
can call it.
and they can spoon feed it to you, and they'll say, yeah, they'll love it. They love everything from Walmart.
So you're telling me that the Transformers is based on something else that was not movie okay.
So and that's just kind of the crux of this whole argument, is that we know Neil Blomkamp is a very talented director because we've seen what he's done with District 9 when he didn't have all the strings
And
attached
he
and
made
all
this
the money.
turd sparkle, in my opinion.
And he probably did make this turd sparkle, but my point is it didn't have to be a turd.
Yeah, and I think part of the problem is that he wrote and directed it, and you say, if you have that much control over what you're making, then you take in those other factors.
And I would swallow every word I said tonight based off what Adam's just saying. If in that review I read where he interviewed, if he hadn't backtracked and tried to walk his way, if he had said, "No,
and the same thing was
I
like,
believe in this script.
Yeah.
Elysium was a story
and he doesn't.
I wanted
Everyone's
to tell."
like I said, everybody like they're all like, "Nah, you're going too deep into that. It's not about class and this and it's like, yes, it is. Like,
It's the same
No.
thing. Someone the other day I was talking to was making the argument about what was the Alien film with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost? That just Paul. And they were saying that like Nick Frost and Simon Pegg were saying that they had to make because it was a big,
I've heard interviews.
They needed the money for the CG and stuff, so they had to make concessions because it was a larger studio film. And they wanted to reach a larger audience. Bullshit. That's what I'm saying. Like bullshit. Make fucking Paul at the budget you want to. I don't make it. Put a guy in an Ewok suit. I guarantee you, it'll be a better film and it'll reach the audience that they're going after anyway, without those bullshit concessions that you have to make because the political.
Well, I
strings
mean,
are
I
attached.
totally agree with you. One of my favorite movies of all time is Death Race 2000. It was made for the catering budget of the shittiest movie you've ever seen. But I mean, but at the same time, it's this just bizarrely off the chain story that actually has this really intelligent satirical core to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I mean, that's my whole. I agree with Isaac. Rome is burning, and while Isaac is laughing fiendishly,
I'm vested in
I'm
this
just kind of
community.
lamenting. I have a tear running down my cheek, going, "Well, this is a bummer."